Welcome to J.A.M Media, or J.A.M for short, where I get to have passionate conversations with the people that excite me. Recently, I got to speak with the Canadian-born, but now New Zealand-based singer, Tami Neilson, ahead of her show in Sydney this weekend. Let's stop messing about though and get to my interview with Tami. You began your career in a family band which supported Johnny Cash. That must be a pretty incredible memory to look back on.
Yeah, definitely. I guess when you're, I guess I would have been, how old was I at the time? Like a teenager. And you don't realize how incredible it is until you become an adult and look back and, because the way you grow up is what's normal to you. And then when you become an adult and look back and go, oh, actually that wasn't totally normal to be able to open for Johnny Cash. It was pretty amazing.
And did you always want to break away from the family band and do your own thing?
No, actually, I hadn't really thought of it, that I thought we'd kind of be a family band forever. And then, of course, once everyone kind of grows into adulthood and goes their own way. And then I ended up falling in love with a New Zealander and moved across the world and found myself in the position of having to start all over again, not without any family members. And that's the first time I really was kind of forced to work as a solo artist, which I never thought that I would have to do.
Was that a difficult process, having to sort of restart your entire music career?
Oh, definitely. I think anybody moving across, moving from a different to a different country faces, those challenges. And the first few years were very, very daunting, not really even knowing where to start, what kind of music industry or scene there was, getting to know people, and just things like growing up in a family band. For me, I'd never auditioned a musician. I'd never worked with musicians other than, people that were related to me. So, it was a very, very daunting process to start all over. And, because the music business is so much built on, who you know and the networking and, very much reliant on people and the reputation that you build. And so kind of starting all over again after having been in the music business my whole life in Canada, in the States, having to start all over again and kind of figure out who I was as a solo artist was, a very, very challenging time.
So do you feel that being in the family band sort of prepared you for the on-stage part but not everything else?
I think that it actually built a real foundation for me for almost every facet of the music business. I watched firsthand my dad and my mom, self-managed our band. So my dad was the one that, drove the tour bus to the gig, unloaded it, set up the stage, did the show, packed up the gear, booked the hotel, booked the venue, spoke to the people that ran it, unloaded the merch, so he did every single thing. And I watched that firsthand my whole life and had my own little jobs and duties, that we all had our different chores. I guess like other teenagers have chores to, sweep the floor. My chore was to pack up the merch, and my brother's chores were to help him set up and tear down. And so I think that I definitely received an education in the music business in a way that most kids don't grow up getting to do it firsthand. You either kind of learn it as you go when you become a little bit older yourself and have to learn it firsthand. But I was fortunate enough to watch my dad do all of that and kind of learn that real hands-on way of being a musician.
And since breaking away, you've amassed quite a long resume of awards. That must be pretty satisfying to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's always really, really encouraging and such an honor to be awarded by your peers in the music industry and recognized. And I guess for me, it means so much more when I think, as you've said, I had to start over in a new country on the other side of the world. And I think it means more to me on a deeper level because I'm from Canada, had to start over, didn't know anybody. And so it really feels when people award you with these things, deeming your work worthy, it feels, I guess it feels like the country really embraces you. I really feel that New Zealand has accepted me, has embraced me as one of their own. And that's a really wonderful feeling to kind of be accepted as one of their own in the music industry there.
And on a personal level, how did you find the transition to New Zealand?
Oh, man, I guess it was like 10 years ago now, so I have to remember. I guess that the first year was a really, really hard one. It was that real adjustment for me, being very, very close to my family, having not only close to them as my family, but close to them as my coworkers, and we were all wrapped up in a career together. So it was a really big adjustment to leave that family nest, and fly to the other side of the world where I didn't know anybody except for my, future husband. But now, looking back at that 10 years ago, New Zealand is so much my home now, and, I have people that I work with that I consider, my New Zealand family over there and my musical family over there, while still being able to tour over here in Canada, and work with, my brother and see my mom. And, so I kind of feel like I've gotten to the point where I get to have the best of both worlds.
And you were speaking quite positively of your dad before. Your new record sort of tackles a pretty personal backstory. Was it difficult making that record?
Yeah, it was definitely, it was written and recorded in the wake of losing him. Within 2 months after losing him, I'd already booked the studio time, and all of the musicians were booked in, and the producers, and I had to deliver this album. And so I guess it was a very, very hard thing to do, but at the same time, it was a very healing thing to do. It was kind of the way that I was able to process my grief and create something tangible that felt like I was honoring him with something that I could touch and that I could physically leave for my children to, carry on his legacy, his music, the songs he wrote, songs I wrote about him. And, I always say when I try to perform his songs as often as I can as well, because I made a promise to him when we were losing him. I said, I don't want you to worry. Not a note of your music will go to waste. I promise that I will be your voice. And I feel that the best way to honor him and keep him alive is to keep his music alive and perform it for as many people as I can.
And how is it performing those songs now?
Pardon me?
How is it performing those songs now? Has it become a little bit easier, or is it still difficult?
It's bittersweet. Some of the songs, at first when I would sing, there are some of the songs on the album I just can't perform live. I can't get through them without crying, so I don't perform those ones. They're a little bit too personal. But then, and there are some songs I can get through with, depending on the atmosphere, if it's an intimate show, if it's an audience that I feel that I can trust to take on that journey. But it's now become, I guess, 2.5 years on, some of the songs like singing the title track, Don't Be Afraid, it actually is something that I look forward to singing because I feel like I am closer to him when I sing it, and I do feel like I am being his voice by making sure that that was the last song he ever wrote in the hospital. And I guess it's the same way, some people wear a necklace that, has a locket with the picture of their loved one in it, or wears a piece of clothing, or has a photo on the wall, because that makes them feel closer and makes them feel like that person's with them, or, gets a tattoo, something to make them feel like that person is always with them. And so for me, singing his music does that for me. And so it was a very hard thing at first, but it's now become something that is actually very healing, that I can feel him with me when I sing them.
And you're popping over to Australia in August for a tour. How are you feeling ahead of that?
Yeah, well, I haven't been to Australia for a while now. I've only ever been able to kind of dabble. I've played a couple of festivals there, like Gympie and Woodford and Tamworth, but I've never done a proper tour, going from, city to city or town to town, headlining.
And what can people expect from the show in Sydney in particular?
Oh, well, as I said, I've got my full band with me, so I've got a lineup of incredible musicians who all have kind of their own little pedigrees in their own right. Brett Adams plays guitar with Tim Finn, and Joe McCallum was Marlon Williams' drummer over here over in New Zealand. And so I have a cracker band. And I guess for me, my live shows are actually, I feel, they're my biggest love. And that's where you actually really get to experience my music at its fullest. I guess I always feel like recordings can never quite capture the energy and what you pour into a live show when you're feeding off the energy of a live audience. So yeah, they can bring their dancing shoes and expect to rip the roof off with us.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time, and all the best with the tour.
Well, thank you very much.
I hope everyone enjoyed my interview with Tami. If you did, please subscribe to my channel, and then head on over to my website, jamyapsmedia.com, so that I can continue to bring you more interviews and reviews in the future. Thanks!